Welcome to PixelPod. I'm your host Alpha Toad, and this is the ultimate destination for all things gaming. Join us on an epic journey through pixelated realms and high-definition adventures as we delve into the latest releases, timeless classics, and the fascinating world of video game culture. Whether you're a seasoned gamer or just starting out your quest, PixelPod is your guide to discovering the stories, strategies, and secrets behind your favorite games. Grab your controllers and level up with us on every episode of PixelPod. Deep, deep voice. Uh.
Yeah, hey, how you doing, guys?
So today we're going to talk about the history and development of the video game industry over time. I want it to be as natural as possible, with takes from you and takes from my generation of gaming compared to your takes of generation of gaming. So you were kind of around, when you probably started into gaming was, I wouldn't say the early times of like the 70s, but I would say you probably caught like the late 80s, but definitely early 90s.
I'd I'd say I hit the early '80s because I probably roughly started video gaming about the time they dropped it, like 85, 80. I was probably 7 years old.
S-
So
7 years
when they
old.
first started, when they started getting the consoles going.
The console's going. Okay, so I got pinpoint here is first successful arcade video game was the Atari's Pong, which came out in 1972. It was the good old fashioned ping pong game.
Yep, yep.
So I just wanted to ask you, what is the earliest game you remember playing, and roughly what year was it, if you can remember that?
I couldn't tell you the exact year. Um, I would say close to 80, 87, 88.
You just don't want to reveal your age, huh? Make me look
No,
like
I
that you're
don't.
ancient.
No, I'm old.
Okay, so you said
So
80.
I'm a Gen Xer, so everything started out, in the early '80s. I mean, that was the big boom of the start, and I remember. I mean, vaguely. I mean, being a child and you don't remember now, but I remember Pong. I remember the old joysticks with the two button. I mean, this we're talking a brick, the size of a keyboard, and I remember Pong, but I think the one that stood out to me was Space Invaders, or like the side scrolling, uh, you know, blaster with the ship. Um, was that was that more of Atari, or was that more of during the Pong era? I can't. That's where I'm trying to track it down.
So I want to
Like trying to
say,
remember exactly.
so there's kind of a mesh between arcade games and then your home consoles that were introduced,
Right.
around the time of Fairchild Channel F, which was released in 1976, which is the first home console to use programmable ROM cartridges. But I know that there was a Star Trek game that came out in the early times, and I want to say it was a form. I could be totally wrong, but I want to say it was a form of that. But I mean, your asteroid shooters were probably around those times. Um,
Yeah, I can remember. I can vaguely remember. Um, I want to say it was like the Odyssey type game. It was just the back and forth shooter, and I don't know if that was the actual like um, what do you want to call it? What was the name for it? They had it. Um, like you had Pong, and then you had Space Invaders, stuff like that.
right.
I remember playing those as early on, and I thought this is amazing. This is like this is
The
insane.
bee's knees.
Yeah.
So
So it
I
kind of developed after that. It was like I was kind of. It was actually my brother's, and he got it handed down from him, or I don't know how the hell we got it, but we got it.
I got you. So let me put a point in there. So I'm a late millennial. I was born in '96. So
Right.
if I was to go back and think of the first game that I can remember playing, it would probably it would probably be like the cliche. I definitely remember playing Mario.
Oh yeah, I mean,
on the Super Nintendo. I believe it was what it was on, just like Mario, where the original ones. I kind of have like
well,
this faint memory of playing a Sonic game on the
was the
Sega.
NES. Yeah, well, you had this, yeah, you had the NES, the original NES, which introduced Mario to the world,
Mhm.
and my personal console that I got, my original very own console. But I can remember back in the day, and I don't know how to this day. I think if I still had this sucker, I'd I'd have some money in my pocket. But I remember the SG 1000, the Sega, the original Sega. It was a black and red box, and my brother had it. This all came from my brother, and my brother was not even into video games. He just, I got this thing, and that's kind of cool. And so I got on it, and I don't even remember the video games that were on it. To be honest with you, I think there was a um, what was it? The Jungle game, and then there was a Frogger game, and some other things like that on it. But it was just your standard, 8-bit, real real early stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that one. I remember that console, and then the NES came out. The first Nintendo when it got introduced. I mean, it was through catalog, and I begged and begged, and I remember getting it, and I was addicted from then on. I sat down in my basement, in my parents' basement, unfinished basement, for hours playing this thing, Mario,
So
and that was
you would say that's probably where that gaming for you is kicked off, was those early renditions of the consoles, that made a majority of gamers' childhoods. So your Super Nintendo, and then branching
right.
into like your Nintendo 64, and
Yep, yep.
obviously over the
That
years.
well, you had your NES, and then you had the Super NES, or the Super Nintendo, which um, after, I'd have to look at what the games were. Um, yeah, it branched off from there. I mean, once I had my own, it was my own console. Nobody could touch it. I mean, it was me. It was mine, and I was totally engrossed in it. I mean, I was up all night, and it's like your typical child stuff that you see from the kids, or the parents. It's like, go to bed, like, I will,
Mm-hmm.
Dad, and then you're like, you know, sitting there real quiet, playing your video game,
Trying not to get busted on a school night at one
trying
in the
not to
morning.
get busted. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they run in, you hurry, shut the TV off, but the console's
Cover
still
yourself.
running,
Yeah.
and
So it's not like super hard for me to fathom, but I was born in '96. We had family consoles growing up, but I had never purchased or owned my own console or video games until I bought a PlayStation 4, I believe in 2015. So I'm really late to like being way into gaming. I mean, I remember having a Nintendo 64, playing like Turok 2 on there with the black cartridge.
right,
And then I definitely was, the PlayStation 2 times, playing Need for Speed Underground. And so we had one, but I would say I played like once a month or twice a month. There were like when we'd have a sleepover with all the friends, and you'd play
right,
like the co-op split screen and have to innovate ways to like not allow screen peeking. You know what I mean?
yep, yep.
Which I know that's like the epitome of your childhood.
Oh yeah, I mean for sure, because I mean I remember like when I got into, I mean, I'll kind of step it back a little bit, but I I owned everything. I owned it all. I mean every freaking console that came out, even the handheld, the Sega. I can't even remember the name of it now. Um, but it was if it was coming out, I was going to own it. I mean, you think of the Ataris, the Segas, every single Sega that came out. Um, but I remember those type of scenarios where I was, we had friends over, and we would try to, do that, but I remember 007 off of the Nintendo 64,
Hmm.
and that was the first, this is competitive shooter type thing. We had to block out the TV or have, a separate TV going, and yeah, I mean, it was a big deal.
Right. So you speak of these older consoles. There's a console that probably not a lot of people know about, but it was actually the first, widespread released home based console that took cartridges, and it's called the Fairchild Channel F. Have you heard of it?
That one I don't, I like being it that I don't remember that one.
So
I don't remember a Fairchild one,
it
no.
was it was released in 1976, and it had little programmable ROM cartridges. And something that I remember as a childhood having, our family consoles, especially with the Nintendo 64, was, the crisp sound of slapping a cartridge into it, but
All
also when
right.
you were having issues, taking the cartridge out and blowing into the cartridge to
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah,
knock some
yeah.
of the dust and stuff out.
I don't think that was a thing, but it worked. I could tell you that.
Yeah, so
For
that's
some reason, yeah. I remember. I don't remember that because that was a little bit ahead of my generation. I never got a hold of that one, but the Ataris and the Sega, like the Sega 1000. I remember that one pretty vividly. It had a racing game on it, and it was disc or like cartridge based, and yeah, you'd have to do that. And if you didn't get it was kind of a predecessor to what like the Nintendos were with the little lid and things like that. You had to make sure everything got in there just right. You know, and if it was off a little bit, it wouldn't boot up and
right.
different things. And
So
yeah, I remember that.
you remember having to blow into them. What
Oh yeah,
about the first time
that's a
you
cheat code.
what about the first time throwing in like a disc? PlayStation 1, I want to say was probably, I could be wrong on this as well, but could be it's the first one that
the
I know of, and it's probably what most,
the
average gamers
Sega
remember.
the Sega Saturn was my first jump into disc-based game.
Gotcha.
So the Sega Saturn was kind of like a, I don't know if it's what it's originally called or whatever, but um, it was the first you know disc one that I had um, you know got into. It was kind of I don't even remember. I mean, there's so many of them. I can't even remember like what exactly the order they were in.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot
Um,
of consoles. They were competing pretty hard to try to land their console in the hands of some excited child on Christmas morning. So I know it could be like quite the blur when it comes to consoles of the past. You know what I mean? And I don't think
so
console releases were. I mean, I'm sure they were big, right? But
yeah,
PlayStation, Microsoft with Xbox, they're such like home known names now, along with like the Nintendo consoles like the Switch and the Wii. Obviously Sony and PlayStation, Microsoft with Xbox. It's almost like a mainstream thing now because they go along with mainstream games like Call of Duty. I'm not too familiar with the Nintendo Switch games and things, but I think it's just more known now, right? Because when we were kids, all we really wanted was, we would hear it from our buddies or maybe see it in a magazine, and we were like, we know we wanted that console that we seen,
right.
but it like wasn't all shoved in your face. You had to kind of, I wouldn't say like look, like outsource for it, but gamers back then kind of had to be part of that genre. But nowadays,
Right.
you could completely not be a gamer, but you're not going to go very far without seeing something about Sony's PlayStation 5,
Right.
Xbox. So I think, yeah, like how was that with you back in the day as being an early gamer? How did you source your games? Was it family, friends? Was it magazines? Or was it more in the commercials and things? But, um, you know,
Uh, a lot of it, and a lot of it was probably it was buddy to buddy, friend to friend type. I played this game. Uh, you need to play it. I'll trade you this game or whatever. I'll let you borrow this game type of thing. A lot of it was sourcing the actual game. Like if I wanted to buy oh, I know this release is coming out, then it was through magazine mostly, and then things like that. But it was back in that time. It was pretty difficult to you know we had Blockbuster stores and stuff like that, where it eventually evolved into to where I could go down and rent a game,
Right.
but but before then it was all through mail and or through buddies that had them.
So,
So
so back then, there's a couple key points that I wanted to push on. Back then you kind of had to trust the commercials that you were being fed. You know what I mean? Because I don't feel like reviews and those type of
sure.
things were nearly as big. So if you've seen a commercial, of the next upcoming generation of video game consoles, like let's throw in what would be like a good median, like something in the early 2000s. Let's go back a little bit further. Let's go with the Nintendo 64. How did you hear about the Nintendo 64? Did your parents surprise you with one? I know at that time you were probably a little bit older, so how did you hear about that? Was it commercials and you're like, wow, like that's it, like the Nintendo 64, look how advanced it is, I've got to play it.
Yeah, I seen like the launches of it, of like through commercial, but they were touting like the newest Mario that goes along with it, or this the Donkey Kong and things like that. And it was it was more of, a lot of it was like, oh, you would go into a store or whatever, and they would have coming soon type stuff, like Walmart or whatever.
So kiosk boards and such things.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
or or the
Those head banners.
the actual controllers hanging out the sides of the display cases with the
Yep.
screen up on the top. See, I remember that. Obviously, that hasn't it
Yep.
hasn't disappeared that long ago. I definitely remember, when the mom would go shopping, I would zip right to the video game area and just start
Yep.
playing the games that were on the screens,
Yep.
which was at the time was probably the best
That was their
advertisement as you
yeah.
could. Yeah, absolutely. Because now, I
Yeah.
mean, everything
Yeah.
it's on Mountain Dew cans, it's on your video game launchers. If you're on PC, it's everywhere.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you're on any type of social media or anything like that, you're gonna be the first to know. It was back in that time. It was like you either had to be in that location where they were advertising it, like a Walmart or a Target or something, in that fact. I mean, you know, we didn't have the back when I started and all that kind of stuff. We didn't have Amazons, or we didn't have Facebook, social media stuff to tell us right off the bat that this game is coming out.
Right. And the
So it was
early
kind of
releases for reviews.
so it was yeah. So it was kind of, as I was younger, or like got older, I was able to subscribe to Game Informer and game magazines that uh, you were in the know.
Hmm.
So you know
Yeah.
so it was yeah, so you would read those, and you would listen to their little reviews on this new upcoming game, and you're just like, oh, okay, I
You
gotta have
couldn't wait.
that.
Yeah, you couldn't wait. So, speaking of that, we're gonna jump onto like a little bit of a controversial topic. I'm a PC
Ooh,
gamer.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a PC gamer. There's been the console wars have been going on for probably, you know, mainstream video games have been around. You got Xbox, and you got the PlayStation, and you've got PC Master Race. By the way, I should say that's where I stand. Is I'm a huge PC gamer. From my understanding, because of me knowing you, you recently got reconverted back into an avid PC gamer, and you have a brand new Xbox sitting in your house.
I do. Yes.
Give me what your outlook is, and because you were a console gamer, but you also had mentioned to me multiple times that you were building PCs and playing PC games when I was still just a twinkle in my dad's eye. So
Yes.
tell me
Yeah.
about that. I want to know more about your early PC days.
So mine was kind of a mixed bag of convoluted crap. So I started out on consoles, and then it morphed into a desire and a need for evolution of games, of wanting more. And so that was kind of in my time, it was the kind of the revolution of games, and skipping from consoles being a huge thing, it started evolving into uh, computers. And I had a family member of mine that had been going to school, and we're talking floppy disk era.
Mm.
It was going to school as a computer, whatever you call the program, like it wouldn't be computer science. I don't even have any clue what, but he was studying to do programming in computers, and he introduced me to computers. And I started out messing with the computers, and I'm like, this is a whole new world. I'm like, holy crap, you know, we're talking floppy disks, and then it evolved into the hard disks, and then the CD-ROM, and from there on. But I remember playing games like uh, Frogger and different what they have that we just said it where you're traveling along the. See, I'm old.
Oh,
I'm getting dementia.
the
The
Oregon
Oregon Trail.
Trail. Yes,
Yeah.
Oregon Trail. I think all kids have experienced that in school.
Yeah. So we're talking on this crappy. I don't even know if it was even capable of 8-bit, but Macintosh and stuff like that. And then my my parents ended up buying a computer, and I tinkered with that thing for hours on end. I'd play or I'd mess with the paint programs and these things and make pixelated paint art and all kinds of stuff. And then I got into it, it evolved into, you know, the disc era, the the actual CD-ROM era where video games were starting to evolve on computers.
Mm.
And so I dived into it and started building a gaming computer. And I remember the days when they first had the speak over the internet,
VoIP. Yep,
VoIP
VoIP.
over the internet, voice over internet.
Uh huh.
And I'm like, this is insane. I can talk to people across the
The
country,
oceans.
ocean sides,
Yeah. So
and
the thing with that is, to believe it or not, with what we have now, the beginning of computer gaming, and computers, I guess, at home, started with the mini computers like the Altair 8800. These computers that were brought to the day to day lives of like your normal civilians. Most of them, they weren't even prepared for video games at all. They allowed people. They came with programming manuals,
right.
and you can program your own little video games within the Altair 8800 or the Apple II. And so with you saying like you seen the early days of what you experienced, right? But I feel like those computers were probably lacking like dedicated graphics cards, and if they did have them,
Oh,
what do
yeah,
you
for sure.
remember of dedicated
I
peripheral, or not peripheral, excuse me, dedicated PCIe devices and such?
Yeah, the PCI stuff came later down the road. It was like it wasn't. I mean, it just had its base stuff. What you're talking nowadays is a potato computer. I mean, you just had your base stuff, and then once they started, my first recollection of adding to my computer was like the first NVIDIA cards. Where they were just these little uh, PCI bus, things that you threw into it. And just putting in the cart, buying the new one. And we're talking, you know, my paycheck from, because everything advanced so fast, like in that generation of the PCs and stuff, everything was like, it tried to outdate itself in 6 months.
Right.
And these were just little, I mean, just cards you put into your PCI slot and went about your business. I mean, we're talking like, you know, downloading the ROM with the key to the disc, and I remember games that, I mean, when the VoIP came along and you could start making friends online, and that's how I made my friends, I guess. that's I remember um, uh, Rogue Spear, Rainbow Six Rogue Spear. That was my game. I mean,
And you
it was the
played that
first.
on PC? You were playing that on PC?
It was PC, yep.
Okay.
And it was, you had to have the right peripherals to get it to run and all this kind of stuff, and then make sure that you were, you're because you had I remember a separate little deal that you had to have to make your mics work and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and through the telephone line or however, um, so I remember those days, and then playing a lot of you know uh, single player games. I remember like Black Hawk Down, or not Black Hawk Down. It was actually Black Hawk Down. It was based on the movie. We're talking you know garbage graphics and things like that, but everything was so fast paced at that time. So you would get one, and then you would have to save up to get another one, a year down the road or less than a year down the road to get, if you wanted to play this next big game.
Next big game, right? Hey, Bones.
Excuse me, you guys are in the MX Bikes chat?
Yeah, I made a big mistake. Gosh dang it. Oh, man. Actually, Bones, Bones is in here. You would be a perfect add-on to this, because I decided to make a video gaming podcast that I'd be dropping on YouTube. And the first little pilot episode is me talking with 8sins here, because he's an older generation gamer that experienced, gaming way before not way before my time, like ages before my time. And yeah, you you dropped in, and I should have locked the channel. I need to make a completely separate.
Again.
Yeah, that's the second time, dude.
Am I part of the podcast right now?
You are. Yeah, you're a part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's 2 against 1 now, because I'm a new gen gamer. Then I got 2. Well, that's a good question though, Bones. When did you get started in gaming, though? Seriously.
Oh, when I was 5 years old, playing Mario Brothers.
Yeah, there you go.
On regular Nintendo.
Yeah, so maybe after this pilot episode, maybe we can have, 2 older generations. Seems harsh saying it, 2 older generations, but
Well, let's back it up though. How old is D-Bones compared to me? I mean, how old are you, D?
I am 38.
Okay, he's 38. I'm 43.
pretty
Okay.
close.
So there's a little bit of a, he could fill in some gaps that I don't remember because I'm senile.
Yes, yeah, understandable. And Bones is also pretty techie too. He could be the one that looks up the stuff in the background. Like what's his name? Off of Joe Rogan's podcast.
Right.
What's that guy that always looks stuff up?
Yeah, have our
Johnny
have our,
Bravo or whatever.
Yeah, our guy in the background.
Yeah, just sitting there, like get mad
The
when he
flat
talks.
earther.
It's this, dude.
Get mad when he talks. Like, why are you talking right now? You're just supposed to look things up in the background and make sure that we're not saying the wrong stuff. You're just the fact checker.
I'll be the flat earther.
Yeah, every good podcast has a flat earther. Dude, I'm gonna have a lot of cutting to do in this video. You're more than welcome to stay in here, Bones, but we're gonna finish this off. I believe we now still have 6 minutes left, because it's only been 2 minutes since the last time those other guys joined. So I guess this would be a good time to be a segue to the direction that the podcast is going. It's mainly going to be diving into how the video game industry has changed over the time and the current situation of video games, and like a deep dive into you know, certain video games and aspects. So I want you to take one video game. It could be from your past, or it could be from now, and just kind of give me a dive into it. You can compare it to older games. Like it blew my mind when I seen, you know, this, or when I was able, like you
Well,
said about VoIP, something like that.
and that's a good segue or a good mention of it. I remember vividly because just my background of you know, law enforcement work and all that kind of stuff, and then I remember vividly playing a game called SWAT, you know, SWAT 4, that kind of just blew my mind about of what you can do with games.
Okay.
And what they can do for the interactions, and how they can manipulate, you know, you can manipulate an environment, because I was on that game quite often, and I remember playing that at all times of the night, and I remember shit from my dad and my parents, because I was up late at night going, as an element, move to this position, and it was like, and then he would come in and, as an element, go to fucking bed, type of shit. And I remember that, and so I'm seeing this new game like the Ready or Not coming out, and that's a throwback to the developers of this had that intention of making this game come to the new world, or the new, you know, the new graphics and all the stuff that you can do inside that game.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how a game like Ready or Not will develop into something that can satisfy me personally.
Right, because you have the SWAT video game experience, and you were a police officer for 20 years, right? So
Right.
you in the game Ready or Not, it's a tactical. I might get this wrong because I've only played it a little bit, but it's a tactical FPS where you play as a some form of tactical intrusion team going and taking down different scenarios with like hotel shooters, and
Yeah.
you know, we got to tread lightly on this topic because
Yeah,
you
I
know.
don't know how they. There's a lot of different things. I mean, it gets a little political in that aspect, but yeah, it's you go in as a special operator, an operator of a SWAT team or whatever, and you're going in there to do basic, you know, police work, but it's a niche, you know, it's a niche game. So, but it throws me back to the back, you know, back when SWAT was out, and they had, you know, several. Back in the day, they had several different SWAT games. You know, the first one was just this, like, you know, the top-down type stuff, like what Grand Theft Auto has evolved into.
Right.
You know, so they kind of developed it into what it is now. Um, but yeah, you go in as an operator. It's got mods. It's got all kinds of different stuff that you can do. You can, you know, go in solo. You want to get your friends together to where it's actually a real experience, you know.
So what demographic do you think the gaming industry, if there is a demographic, obviously they try to hit an itch in somebody's, you know, gaming wants and needs. What kind of demographic do you think these game developers that are creating games like Ready or Not, I believe like Ground Branch, you know, your militarized shooters, Squad, what demographic do you think they're hitting, and do you think it resonates, specifically Ready or Not? Does it resonate as a gaming place for people with a police officer or a SWAT background? Do you think that's the demographic they're trying to hit, or do you just think that they're saying there's probably a lot of guys out there that want to experience what it would be
Yeah,
like to go into a hostile environment, try to be as
right.
tactical as possible, and survive, obviously, because it's not a reset game. Once you die, you lose the mission type thing. So who do you
Well,
think they're trying to reach out to?
I would say, you know, your ex-military guys, your ex-police officers, your current police officers. You know, it can, I if they developed it right, I guess it could be some form of training for them, but it just all depends. It's all relative. It's video games, but
So you think that
um,
there is a real world application that these type of tactical shooters could be applied to?
I see it. I mean, you look back in the day, when I was getting into the computer games, I remember Army the Army game, the game that was developed by the military to
Army Proving Grounds.
yeah, Army Proving Grounds, or the one prior to that that was actually developed to train soldiers. I mean, it was a because that was the generation that they saw happening. It was we need to tap into the people that are looking at video games or this uh, different environment. So I see it. They could develop it into different things. The demographic wise, I think they could have, it if it's real world scenarios, they can change the minds of the people that don't support police or vice versa. It can go several different ways. But
Lots of directions in the world of tactical
right, but
FPSs.
yeah, I mean, you look at one guy's going to say this isn't anything close to what what it would be real life. Like you look at Squad or Arma or all these other games that are tactical simulators or whatever, and they're like, oh well, that's not anything close to it. But I
Right.
think there's just a demographic for people that get that, that want that type of a game feel.
Mhm.
So I don't know, really, be honest with you, what demographic. I would see a lot of, you know,
Maybe kids
I
that are
don't know.
interested into getting into that line of work.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, for sure. And I just don't see it being, hugely popular like all these, Call of Duty things that, totally turned to, I won't say what, but
Right. Like I when I
you
get
know,
older, I want to run around with a riot shield and a shotgun in a war zone.
yeah, and I want to have bunny ears and
uh,
and
I want to be Nicki
paint my
Minaj when I get older.
I want to paint my gun pink, and I'm gonna try hard for the gold gun or
The one with
the
diamonds on
diamond
it. You
gun.
got to have diamonds on your
You
guns, like the early Call of Duties. So that I mean, I could see that being the thing because I grew up riding a lot of BMX. I was involved with a lot of extreme sports. Yeah, I guess that would be the general consensus of the type of things that I was into. So I naturally gravitated towards those that kind of form of entertainment via
Right.
like the TV shows that I watched. TV shows like Props was a major BMX TV show. I believe they even had skateboarding in there, and I skated as well. So obviously, when I seen the Tony Hawk games come out or the Dave Mirra um, games that came out, I want to say Matt Hoffman might have dropped a couple BMX games back
I
in the
think
day.
so.
I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure on that. I was really young, but I definitely remember the Dave Mirra games. They had the BMX, they had the Tony Hawk game, so I played
Oh
lots
yeah, I
of Tony
remember the
Hawk.
yeah, I remember the Tony Hawks. Yeah, I remember
So
those.
they do try to appeal to a certain demographics. As games develop nowadays and you have more advanced games, you can do a lot more with the games you have. It wouldn't be out of the equation for them to try to hit a demographic of people that are serving the public with police duties, or people that are serving the country in military games and mil sim games like Squad, like Ground Branch. I'm just
Well,
trying to say, who are they trying to hit with like Fortnite and what Call of Duty has became?
right. And yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, that's where it's changed so much. I remember you had to have a good connection. You had to have good internet. I mean, you had to have skill, and it wasn't based on this dumbing down of the skills and stuff that you see now, where they're just warping the the skill base, and they're 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 focusing their demographic. You look at that. That's where like Fortnite was so popular. They made so much money off of it. It was their demographic was young kids or these people that want to see purple haired guys running around doing whatever. And then now you see a tactical type shooter of modern warfare that it was somewhat I wouldn't say realistic, but it was tactical. You had guys that were actually dressed like military guys, and now you have them wearing pink bunny outfits.
Right.
That to me is what they're trying to to shoot for. And if they would just segregate that kind of stuff, or not segregate, I shouldn't get into that, but you know what I mean. Like
We're
say
getting canceled.
this is yeah, this is the demographic that we're trying to go to, and you can stay in your lane, and we'll stay in ours. You
Right.
know, that
So
type of thing.
so the last thing we went over, we were supposed to do 30 minutes. So the last thing that I want to touch on, because I have an opinion on this, and I want to hear your opinion on it, but and we'll keep it short and sweet because I want to make a full episode of this. But how has the competitive gaming scene changed games compared to what you were used to of back in the day? Back in the day, the most competitive you got was, like I said, trying to hide half the screen from your buddy so they don't screen peek while you're trying to, hit them in 007 GoldenEye.
Right.
So the competitive gaming, what's your take on competitive gaming, and how has it changed since you were gaming back in the late 80s, early 90s?
That was a hard one. I mean, that one's, competitive gaming was between a group of guys that got, in the same room, and you either had four different TVs, we're talking like
LAN parties.
box ass TVs, that you had. We're talking boxes that weighed the size of, the amount of a fridge, and you had to lug that across the street or to your buddy's house, get it there somehow, and then hook it all up, you know, and then jumping into what it is. I think it's great that competitive gaming is, but it's kind of the shortcomings of different things, and that's where like the consoles or the PCs, you've got these cheaters and you've got all this other stuff, and it's just it's I see it. It's gonna keep evolving and in different directions, but um, I don't know. I just hope it continues on a decent path, but I would like to see the old school ways of the competitive gaming where it's not dumbed down to fit a certain, like a newbie or somebody that comes along and thinks they're great because they've dumbed it down,
Right, right. So my take on it, because I mainly started gaming. Like I said, I bought my first console in 2015. So I'm super new.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but you started out as a competitive gamer.
I did, yeah.
Did.
I started out when obviously competitive gaming has been well established. I mean, they had competitions back in the times that you were gaming, but you had to
Right.
you had to go to these tournaments. Like
Right.
there wasn't like a way that you could qualify over the internet. I mean, there was
Right.
for certain games as it developed, but there was a time when people were playing like Super Smash Brothers, where they all had to go into a sweaty, hot conference room, sometimes in hotels or wherever it was, sometimes hundreds of miles away. And people did that, and they had to go and try to qualify. So they actually had money on
Oh,
the
yeah.
line. And as opposed to when I started into gaming, and I'm a big, I don't play in competitive tournaments or anything like that, but I prefer the competitive aspects of video games. Games like Rocket League, competitive play. Games like even Age of Empires, like when you get into like MOBAs and things like that have ranks, or Rainbow Six Siege. That's the
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of gaming that keeps me like in. I can't do single player games. Like I can't do, like, a lot of people are way into story rich games,
Right.
and I
And
just
that's
can't do it.
right. I mean, you have to have the patience for it, and then it just depends on what kind of gamer you are, and that's where you started out as a competitive gamer. I started out as a story driven gamer, where a lot of the stuff that I came out didn't have competitive stuff to it. It was all single player campaigns
Hmm.
and stuff that displayed you know the best graphics at the time and things like that. It was all story driven um, during the developments of it because there was no online play, and that's where my stuff. That's why I enjoy single player games because it's part of that evolution of stories and I like seeing new things, new stories. You can get immersed into the environment and things like that. But whereas a competitive gamer, you're going to be focused more on you know,
Metas.
getting the metas and getting the the competitive part of it, and that's when I jumped into computers where they finally had the online play, and it was Rainbow Six stuff like that, and it was competitive. But in that day, it was just it was shoot, win, die, type stuff, or shoot, die, win. It wasn't you're not trying to get this greatest gun or whatever. It was online play, being tactical, trying to figure out, like trying to beat the other team.
Gotcha.
And so that's kind of where I would like to see the harkenings of the old day come back to where it's based on that and not trying to win a bunch of stuff, because that's where you get a lot of the crap going along with it.
The cheaters, or
The cheaters,
the people that have the time to grind these competitive games where you
Right.
I work a full-time job, I want to get off, I want to play some Call of Duty. You get on there and you absolutely get worked by some 13-year-old, you know what I
Right.
mean, that's been playing
Yeah,
all summer.
Well, yeah, and that's just it too nowadays. Is it's like it's almost there's that draw between it's a babysitter, or it's you want your kids to actually thrive in the real world, or it's you're trying to get these kids they're playing this stuff all the time, and then you're getting whooped by a 14-year-old that sits home and plays all day long.
Right.
So that there's a big difference.
So with that being said, the competitive side of video games, do you think that and we'll keep it real brief, do you think it kept, or it left a distasteful stain on the different generations of gamers, your generation of gamers compared to this younger generation of gamers that sometimes can see dollar signs involved with the games? This includes streaming content, because people don't want to watch a gamer that's not very good at a game. So there's still a competitive aspect there. They want to watch somebody like Ninja, who is really good at Fortnite, or Dr. Disrespect with I can't think of the name of it, but it was the Battle Royale that he started playing. It wasn't PUBG, it was another one. I think World War Z, or not World War Z, something. H1Z1, excuse me. So H1Z1.
Yes.
So
H1Z1.
people gravitated not only because of Dr. Disrespect's character, but also his competitive nature to be good at the game. They watched him win the wins, and then PUBG with the chicken dinners. Do you think that the competitive side and the dollar signs that are now branded on the ability to get dollar signs on video games, do you think it's kind of ruined the industry and kind of put story-driven games kind of on the back burner, especially with the most recent release of the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare? People are complaining about the 3-hour campaign, and obviously they're gonna probably put most of their efforts into the battle royale, the Warzone. Do you think it's ruined, the gaming community, in your opinion?
From my perspective, or from back in the day when I first started Modern Warfare and all those things, it's definitely for sure. They are putting dollar signs all over that thing to where it's not even, to me, it's not even appealing. This is the first game, Modern Warfare 3, that I will not touch.
I'm right there with you, and I am a competitive gamer.
Yeah, I mean, you see it and you're like, oh, it's Modern Warfare. Do I want? No, I'm not gonna buy it.
Gotcha.
Because of just the crap that they've done to it is dollar signs, and that's what I see to it. I see, and that's where it's in danger of failing, because of it's not going to be the same if they keep doing what they're doing. And yeah, for sure, I hope it just goes back to the how it started, the original stuff, and they can try to develop some different things. But Modern Warfare they need to either kill it or stop doing what they're doing, because it is going to change the roadmap.
Gotcha.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's a perfect thing to say, because that's what our next episode is actually going to be about, the Call of Duty franchise and how Call of Duty has changed, and We're gonna take a deep dive on the next podcast episode into Call of Duty, into Activision, Treyarch, and the many development studios that have taken on the Call of Duty franchise to bring the next gen Call of Duty. So we'll dive into that on this next episode.
Am I allowed to cuss during that episode? Because there will be a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could definitely cuss. So yeah, I think that's you made some really good points in this episode. It was a lot of fun. It's a little hard because it's our first one. I'm still learning. We had some uninvited guests, which is totally fine as well. Well, we'll just have to cut that out, or keep some of it in as well. I mean, because the point of this podcast isn't to be perfect or cliche or whatnot. I just want to have good conversations. We tend to have really good conversations, and we think to ourselves, why haven't these conversations been recorded? I mean, obviously, we don't want a majority of our Discord chat being recorded. That's for sure. I know it probably is, but I think you made some really good key points, and you gave some really good insights. I'm excited to do more. This is fun to me. I could care, less about what the direction of the podcast go as much as I just want to have good conversations. I'm excited to send some more people on. Absolutely. So
this is for us, and if people want to listen, I fully appreciate it.
Absolutely, I do as well. So that's been great. I really appreciate you, Bones. I also appreciate you for listening. If you're still here for the past little bit.
I am.
Bones, say goodbye.
Yeah. Give us the exit segue.
Give us the exit segue. I'm 8 Sins.
I'm Alpha Toad.
I'm D Bones. This has been good listening.
Thank you. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. The podcast is only going to improve from here. I actually invested some of my own money on some equipment. I got more coming. So it's going to improve. Hit the like button, subscribe. If it's something you want to listen to, and we'll see you on the next one. See ya.
Yes, sir.